we're here from the Eclectic Gamer to talk about Mysterium.
Ooh.
It's very mysterious. So Mysterium it's a new board game, but it's actually older. It's new in the States.
Old board game? Yes. So I think it was a Ukrainian board game that then was printed in Poland, that was then just newly translated to English and now published in the United States.
Which is sort of funny because there's very little translation that needs to be done. And I guess that's kind of the idea. So this was originally just a game someone made up using Dixit cards, right?
I think so.
So anyway, the idea is that one person plays as a ghost, and everyone's having a seance to attract the ghost, and the ghost is trying to indicate people and places and things for each person. And then finally point to its murderer, but the ghost can't talk. There's a murder in there somewhere.
The ghost was supposedly murdered, is trying to communicate how he was murdered, but is like really bad at this communicating, which is why every player has a different combination of how it was murdered.
So each non-ghost player has a character, a location, and an object the ghost is trying to send them images of and get them to guess. And then at the end, he'll pick one group of those three things to be the one that was murdered. Why the ghost is conveying up to 4, 5, 6 sets of things when only one of them is the murderer, I don't know. He gets sidetracked easily.
It's more fun. Yeah. And then the ghost gets to pick which one
was the murder,
which is later on at the end of the game, which is
there's some weird
even better.
But the ghost can only communicate through images, and so there are these big, beautiful cards that are like Dixit cards that are very colorful, got a lot of like crazy stuff in them. And so what'll happen, and then just for example, here are some of the cards. You'll have this guy who's a chef. You want to see that? All right, there we go. Or you'll have a race car driver, and then you'll have locations like, I guess that's also it has to do with the chef, the kitchen, or this creepy attic that looks like the scene from the Haunted Mansion. And then stuff like a hammer or a fork or whatnot. And how you want to sort of link those together is up to the ghost, because the ghost gets to hand each player any number of the 7 cards he's got in his hand. And so you might do it by color. You might hand someone a bunch of cards that have a red color that's the main color of the thing they're trying to guess. Or if it's a chef, you might have things that are all food related somehow. It's up to you as the ghost to do it. And different people will think differently, so it's kind of interesting. And then people can use process eliminations, like, well, I know that's the chef, so I get to guess between these ones. And you go through a number of rounds of it, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we had a pretty bad experience with this at Gen Con that we won't belabor too much. But they only, it was delivered late, and they had to airship stuff in, or the production was delayed, and they had to airship stuff in. And
which is understandable.
Which is totally fine. And then they decided to split them up across the days, which is exactly what you want them to do. But then they sold them all early, and apparently they all ended up going to other vendors.
Like, we were at the front of the line, front of the doors, when they opened them on the second day. And by the time we got in line,
there were even though there were only maybe like 15 people ahead of us, there were 115 people ahead of us when we got to the line, because it was all vendors. And I think there's ways they could have handled it better.
We were pretty bitter about that. There was some minor trampling involved. It was not pretty.
But we still liked the game, even after that terrible experience. So I guess that says something.
Yeah.
It's definitely like a party game, right?
It is a party game. So I know that some people heard about it being very popular up to Gen Con, and I think we're expecting more of a strategy game, and it's not that. It's a party game. But that said, it's a pretty fun party game. More of a gamer's party game.
Right, yeah. And there's strategy to it, and the strategy is trying to think about ways to connect things and try to get on the same wavelength as the people you're throwing cards to.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because
there is a little bit of strategy, particularly when if you're the ghost and you're trying to communicate, there's some strategy in terms of when do I give you multiple cards, when do I choose to dump my hand, when do I strategically dump my whole hand on a player.
Because as the ghost, if you give someone 3 cards, then you get to draw 3 new cards. But sometimes the cards you have are terrible for conveying the things you're trying to convey. So you might just go, well, I'm not going to get this person to guess anyway, so I'll give them all 7 of my cards so I can get new ones, because they had higher difficulty through the game, you can't replace your hand very often. So
yeah, and hopefully they'll get the idea of that you're not trying to link all of those things with the card that you're trying to get them to guess.
But that's even worked out well, too, because I'm like, well, this one had a cupcake on it, and there's a chef out there, so you would have given me that one if the chef was mine, so you can rule things out.
Right. And sometimes you miss those things as the ghost.
But this is where it's kind of fun, because it is a party game, but the ghost makes decisions, and the rest of the people can kind of hang out and talk, and they can team up and work on it together. But once the ghost gives out the cards to the last person, the timer goes. It's a 30-second timer. Everyone has a chance to guess, and then it's really quick because there's just no time, and then you move on to the next round. So it's pretty cool. And so it's nice to have a party game where there's not a lot of crosstalk. It's basically just the ghost does his thing, and everyone else gets to hang out, and then you have 30 seconds and you go. And it paces itself really well for a party game, if that makes sense. A lot of times you get kind of hung up on people messing around or whatever.
Yeah. So usually when there's games with these kinds of timers, we ignore it. So in this case, I think the timer is pretty helpful in terms of avoiding analysis paralysis. There's only been a couple instances where we've even really needed to use it.
You usually figure it out by that time.
And there's also, they have these sort of, what are they called? Clairvoyancy.
Okay, so this is a thing
markers.
Apparently was added for this level. Yeah, it's called clairvoyancy tokens. And so you don't play it if you only have 2 or 3 players total, including the ghost. But at higher levels, you basically have to guess whether the other people are right and wrong on their guesses. And the more of those you get correct, whether they did get it right and you said they would, or they got it wrong and you said they get it wrong, you get clairvoyancy points. And at the end of the game, the more you have to have a certain number to be able to see all the cards in the ghost's prediction before you make your guess. So if you get really bad at that, you only get to see one of the cards for their final indication of which group was the murderer. And initially we didn't like it because it kind of just adds another element to it, and you're just kind of like, well, this isn't the core fun of the game. The core fun of the game is interpreting things.
Yeah.
But it when you have more players, it gives the players who have already finished theirs something to do.
Right.
I
think there are certain circumstances in which
I think you really need it at the higher player count.
So maybe, I don't know, if you're playing with all new people who are new to gaming, maybe you don't give it to them because it'll confuse them. I don't know.
It really just adds more to do and a little bit more a different level of engagement as well. And so, if you're playing with younger kids, just leave it out. If you just want to goof around a little more and just guess some cards, then you leave it out because it's just not worth trying to think and count and figure out. If you're playing with newer players, leave it out. But I think once you've played a couple times, you're going to go, okay, I want something a little more, just a little more to do on every turn than just guess. So it's an interesting addition. We actually didn't really like it when we first saw it and tried it, and then I think it's kind of grown on us a little bit. I wouldn't say I'm really gung-ho about it. It makes the game great, but... Right.
So to be fair, when we first tried it, we tried it with less than the recommended number of players for it.
That was just more to see the mechanics, but at first glance it didn't seem great.
Right, and then we played better than we thought it would play.
But that's Mysterium. That's some of our thoughts. We kind of like it as a party game. I don't think I want to play it all the time. I don't even want to play it more than once in a row. But it's a good, very different party game to add to your collection, I think. I don't think it's...
Yeah, I actually like playing it multiple times just so that you can rotate who's the ghost.
That's fair.
Because the person who's the ghost isn't... it's really fun to guess, and the person who's the ghost doesn't get to guess. So.
Yeah, and I think it actually... I was okay with Dixit, but...
I really didn't care for Dixit.
I think the problem is it...
But I really like deduction games, so...
yeah, but I think the reason that you might like this if you didn't like Dixit, even though it feels similar with the crazy cards, is that Dixit kind of has a creative component to it a little bit, right? You have to think of this word or this sentence, and you're... it's got some of that similar thing where you're trying to read how other people will interpret things, but you have to come up with something creative to do it, right? Because you have to say a word or phrase that gets people to guess your card, but you have to be vague enough so that not everyone guesses your card. Mm-hmm. And some people just don't want to do that creative component, right? That's a fun thing, Sometimes, that some people love it, some people don't. Sometimes you want it, sometimes you don't. But this doesn't have any of that, really. You're really just trying to make connections to the cards, or at least it's much lower.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
I I just like I think the deductive aspect is just a lot higher with this than it is with Dixit. I didn't care for Dixit because I guess I just always saw on a different wavelength than other people. So, but with this, it was a lot, I guess, more straightforward. I felt like I was running into the different wavelength problem a lot less with Mysterium than I was with Dixit. So.
Cool. Well, that's Mysterium. This has been our quick review video. We didn't talk about any of the attributes from the game system, but we will probably be putting Mysterium in our board game review site pretty quickly here. We played it enough. So go ahead and check that out at tagratings.com. Here somewhere. Somewhere maybe. And then we'll put up the full review later talking about all the different attributes and why you might or might not like it. But anyway, thanks again. I'm Adam.
I'm Stephanie.
And we're from The Eclectic Gamer. Keep on playing.